start heart recording. Okay, we're just going to start and I'm going to do it and I'm going to start recording right now. What? Cancel recording. Okay, there we are. All right, we're going to get started. This is Ingrid Centurion, and I have Dr. Michelle Snyder with me on the Sheroes Podcast. She's an amazing woman, an author, the symbologist, the director of the Ensman Archives, and you're just such an amazing person. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I want your story to inspire women and educate women. And I mean, where do we even start? First, before we get into all your books and all that amazing stuff, I want to talk about the challenges. You at one point were in an accident and you couldn't walk.
It wasn't an accident, really. In 2000, I couldn't get up off the floor, and I had trouble with my legs, so they put me through massive numbers of tests and this and that, and they decided that I had muscular dystrophy, which I do not.
Now,
That's a
what
pretty,
age what age were you when
I
when they
was
told you this?
50.
Oh my goodness.
So
So,
it turns out that it was a compilation of a lot of things. Th- A few years ago here, I found a chiropractor who took an x-ray and found a really serious subluxation in my spine, which had pinched that nerve and it had been there for 40 years. Now, why they couldn't see that, I could see it. It was scary. It was like, it was like over here. And so at the same time, I got arsenic poisoning from the water in Maine because I'm a city girl and I don't know that you have to have your water tested in Maine when it's a well. So, so I was in a wheelchair for a while and I had big braces for a while, but I'm getting better at this point, 25 years later. I am now learning to walk like a 2-year-old learns to walk. It's very refreshing.
but when I first met you, I remember you
Yes.
struggled with walking.
Yes.
And didn't you also, like, you were a ballerina?
When I was 10, but no, I was a dancer and I spent many years in gymnastics and martial arts, and all of that went away. I was
Right.
50, so I had 3 kids at the time. So here I am, 50 years old, in a wheelchair in Bangor, and there's Jay holding everything together. So what do I do? Well, I am not a couch potato. I will not sit on the couch and take pain medication and go, it's not me. So what I did was I decided to get my master's degree. Wouldn't you? I mean, is that reasonable? So Jay was reading the Da Vinci Code to me then. It had just come out. And it was a great story. But the thing that really got a hold of me, I said to Bob, I said, what is a symbologist? So that's where I decided what to be because I'd been drawing since I was 2. I'd been teaching art for 40 years, and it's tough to do that from a wheelchair. Kids decide they learn that erasers bounce, and then there's absolutely no keeping the peace. So I decided to do that, and instead of being helpless on the couch, I read about 2 or 3 dozen symbol dictionaries from A to Z.
Well,
And
wow.
then Bob said, if you're serious, I will train you to be a world authority in symbology. And that is what I have spent the past 25 years doing.
Wow. So I want everyone to know that, at 50, uh, you had your children and you suffered this, physical impairment. And
Yep.
we all go through different things in our lives. But I want to share the empowering story that one, you got to walk again. You
Yes, I did.
got,
And
that's right.
that's because I didn't believe, I didn't like the future they painted for me. I'm a vision person. I see stuff in my head, and I didn't like that. And they were they were really guessing. I mean, I suppose it was the best they could do. But after about 12 or 15 months, I realized that what was happening was not just, it wasn't muscular dystrophy. But in essence, the foundation of being able to pull out of that was that I always believe that there's something that can be accomplished. There's always a way to accomplish something, even in what you might look at and say, this is a horrible situation. Well, okay, so what good can I find?
Mhm.
The old expression, making lemonade out of lemons, but that, I mean, that's easy to say, but that's not an easy thing to do when you're in that situation. But that's me. I just didn't. I didn't accept it. I did not accept that my future was going to be with me on the bed, not being able to lift a telephone. I said that
Right.
this is not happening to me. So I changed my plan. And the plan that I made was to use my brain, which still worked. I had to tell the kids that, look, just because I'm in a wheelchair, my feet don't work, doesn't mean my brain doesn't work, okay? It's tough.
It
So,
is. It is.
so people who are in a situation of struggle can do one of two things. They can figure out what they can do to benefit from what opportunity is there in that struggle. Let me ask you, if I had not been diagnosed, would I be the symbologist?
Right.
That is a question. I will never know the answer to that question, but I would hope eventually I would have gotten there. But this was the only thing, the only door I could see that I could go through because I was still capable of reading and studying and writing and going for this degree. And I've built on top of that for a long time. It was not easy. I'm not saying this is an easy thing. It's a determined thing. It's something that you say, I can't just give up.
Right.
If you don't, this is what heroes and sheroes are. They don't give up.
That's right. Never.
I
And
mean, heroes and sheroes, if you're even a comic book or an Avengers fan, it's never easy, but they just don't quit. So there has to be a way. You look for the door. I also believe very strongly that divine intervention had a lot to do with this because I'm open to the spirit. I'm open to inspiration and creation. So that that was that was looking back. It's easy to say, it's easy to connect the dots looking backwards. Oh, this is where I went because I was here, because I was here, because, but when you look forward, that's not as easy.
that's
But
right.
faith means taking another step, even if you don't see the staircase.
How about tell us, you've written so many books. How many books have you written? And tell us about your first one. I want to know a little bit about your first one and then the latest one that you're writing.
Well, so far, I've written 19 that are published, and three or four that I've just never finished, and two or three that are like a third done. So, but published books, there's 19. The first book that I wrote was when I finally got my master's degree from the University of Wales. Master's degrees are not really pleasure reading. They're not reading most people would put up with. There was something, I'll tell you, I've published my master's degree as one of my books, and there are people that like that because it's got history and it's got documentation and it's got bibliography and footnotes. They like that. But I wrote revision, R-E capital V, revision. If you learn to see symbols, you revision your world. You can't help it because they're all around us. Everything that humans do to communicate is a symbol of some kind. So that book was my first one, and it was based on my thesis, and it has in it some of the history I had to learn, which is like, 80,000 BC. This is becoming a symbologist doesn't mean learning to read tarot cards. It means learning to see symbols as human communication in any age, in any culture, and in any line. So there's patterns to symbols and there's patterns in symbols. And the biggest rule that I have I'm trying to tell people now in my symbology group behind the symbols. This group is so I can teach people how to see symbols. You got to have context. Where was it found? Where was it made? Who made it and how old is it? Those are things that are really important. Context is really important. Like you're reading a book in English and there's three sentences in German. How effective is that? So you got to know what you're looking at. So that was really that was the beginning of a long road. Then when I got my degree and I published my first book, I went to the local paper, which was called the Minuteman in Lexington, Mass, a very historic place. And the editor or the guy there, I guess he was the editor, wanted me to be a contributor. And I wrote like, I don't know, it was like 600 words, no pictures. I said, I'm writing an article about symbols and there's no pictures. What is this? So I did that. They were very simple, not dumb, but simple articles about different symbols and different ideas in symbology, and he's the one that named me the Symbologist, and it stuck.
I
So I
love
did that
it.
for a couple of years, and then I wrote another book. So that the books that I wrote first, revision, the next book that I wrote, see, symbols are a symbology is a system of communication. English is a symbology. Do you speak Spanish?
Yes.
So you know two symbologies.
Yes.
That is amazing. Do you know how long we're in the womb, then we go to school for like a million years just to learn to read and write one symbology, and you know two of them. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
So, like the tarot cards are a symbology, heraldry is
Okay.
a symbology. So it is a group of symbols that are a communication system. That's
Hmm.
a symbology. A symbologist studies those groups and symbols within those groups. So I have more or less a specialty for Northern European hemisphere, but I am very familiar with symbols from other cultures. You have to be because people migrated even before there were cars. We migrated.
Right.
So I wrote my next book based on like, all right, winter solstice. What's the winter solstice cross? What is the tarot system? What is heraldry? What is magic? So I wrote a book called Concept about those concepts, and each one has a chapter on it. The
Okay.
next book I wrote because oral tradition, the people maybe they don't know what oral tradition is. That's storytelling, right? Well,
Right.
mothers have taught children with stories since there have been children, and how long is
Mhm.
that? We don't think they taught their children with stories at 40,000 BC. Well, how did they teach them then? It's like that's the only way to do it. So oral tradition is where we get all of the fairy tales that are now printed because we have a printing press. But before that, they were told.
Right.
And so I did a book called Oral Tradition and pulled history and symbolism out of those books, out of those stories, the mythology and fairy tales and even children's rhymes have a lot of information in them. And so that was my book, Oral Tradition. Then I decided I should do a book on magic. I'm not a magician. I just did a book on how come there is magic. How come we have a magic wand? Where did that come from? Where did we get scrying? How did we start doing that? So this is the kind of book, kind of the history of magic and its objects and elements and color and things like that. So that one's called Magic. I'm forgetting some. Oh, I did publish my thesis. That's called Method because
Method.
method is important to a thesis. You have to explain to the university your method. That's like a
Okay.
whole section of the book. And it introduced Bob Ensman's translation of Ice Age inscriptions, like Ice Age art, from caves and things. He could read that. It was a language. They did communicate. That was their language, and he learned an incredible amount about what it was like at 12,000 BC from this. So I introduced some of that in my thesis. I don't know what they thought of it, but I did get my thesis done. So
Very
then I
good.
published that one.
Now, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Ensman archives and
Oh,
that whole story.
yeah,
Just
because
real
there would not be a symbologist
exactly.
without Dr. Ensman. I would not exist because I think it's amazing to know two languages. He could speak 12 and read 15 or 20.
Wow.
His father knew something about every language. He could speak to almost anybody on the planet.
That's amazing.
It's an amazing genetic gift or a
Trait.
curse, depending on how you're looking at it. So, uh, so in 1988, we were running a um, a presidential primary campaign in Massachusetts, and the candidate owned television stations. And Bob Ensman was involved in Voyager. This is the first Voyager, not what they ended up with. He wanted to get in touch with the owner of the TV stations to give him exclusive rights to what was coming back from Voyager. So we made an attempt to introduce him, but the guy was kind of rude to Bob. And Bob, being Bob, he didn't take too well to that, but we were amazed. We walked into his house and we saw starship blueprints This is not science fiction.
Right.
These are blueprints that he had for a starship he had designed and had engineered all over his walls. Florida, he was like, it was like the mad scientist's
Right.
workspace. He was amazing. So we just built our relationship from there. On and off, we were apart for a while and then together for a while. But when I was in a wheelchair, I called him and I said, I want to do this. And so then I would be on the phone with him for an hour or more, 3 or 4 hours at a time, and he would be teaching me.
Wow.
And the archive was the source of material. Now, long time later, to cut off all of the learning in between, he was aging. He was in his late 60s when we met him. And he would get sick and he would say, I'm going to die. Take the whole archive. And then a year later, I'm better. I want it back. So we moved this.
Right. Right.
And this is like, people don't know how big this archive is.
All right. And
It
you've been
had a
working
half
on
a
it for
million
years.
sheets
Yeah.
of paper in it.
Yeah.
And, they were sort of organized. But some of these things that he wrote on were napkins from Burger King. I mean, this is not
Right.
like manuscripts you can take off the shelf and just read. Um, so this archive was substantial. And then we found more archive when Jay went in to fix the ice dams in his attic. He had a
Wow.
four-bedroom house,
Uh-huh.
and from wall to wall in this attic was Ensman's stuff piled, books, papers, stuff Joanna had done. Joanna's another part of this. Joanna was in MIT at age 15
Hmm.
in the 50s. She wanted to be a computer programmer, but those words didn't exist. This is 1950s we're talking about. So she took electrical engineering and everything you can imagine, and she got her degree in mathematics from MIT. And so that was her beginning. And she ended up programming at Raytheon to doing both classified and unclassified work. They
Hmm.
both were. Bob was probably classified by the military from age 15.
Wow. And so you were able to preserve all his research, all
Yes.
his work, all his formulas, all the things that he worked on. And
Not that we
this,
understand them.
right, right. No, you were preserving them, the
Yes.
archive. So someone else can take a look at that and
Well, the good
uh
thing about that, which you don't know because we haven't talked a lot since then,
mhm.
but in the past, let's say 5 years, Jay has been very persistent in trying to get the archive digitized because paper crumbles.
Yes.
And we've been through the whole archive. Then he said, "So I want an AI, just not on the internet, just in my archive." We founded FRIA, you remember that, in
Yes.
2018. And
Mhm.
then in 2019, FRIA bought property, which is where the whole archive is housed, and we live there now. So we were told by a guy who works for the Department of Defense to get this particular scanner, which will scan 100 pages a minute. Can you imagine trying to scan a 500,000 sheets of paper
Right.
one at a time?
Yes. Oh
This is
no, it's
not
going to
happening.
take you a lifetime, right?
So we have scanned all his work.
You have.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
And we're still scanning. I've got about half of his personal correspondence left to do.
Okay.
Then Joanna decided we should scan the, I don't know, 6,000 books we have from his reference library.
Okay.
Because if you're going to scan the archive, that's part of it. So
Right.
we're still doing that. And then about 6 months ago, we finally, after 2 years of work, a friend of Jay's from the Freemasons was a programmer, and he said, I can do this. And he put together a program of an AI we're calling Althea because that's what Bob wrote his book about his AI that he worked on, his sci-fi book. So it is now, she is now in there reading. We're going to see how this OCR works. But what she does is she takes the JPEG and she makes a Word file out of it. And so what we can do instead of pulling paper off the shelf out of envelopes and disorganized books is we can say, okay, Althea, find me everything on this subject.
Hmm.
So there's going to be challenges with his handwriting because we can't read it. I doubt if she can. We don't know what she's going to decide that means, but this is really good. And she's still working on it. I think she's getting through maybe the last 15 or 20 from the 600 plastic envelopes we had that each hold 400 to 500 sheets of paper. That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's
So
a
yeah,
lot.
so now we have Althea cranking away in there
Okay.
and Jay's scanning the books, and so she will have access to his work and to his library. She's got Aristotle and Isaac Newton loaded. I mean, she's got all of this information because he did.
Right.
And we're hoping that we can train her like you can on like ChatGPT, which I
Right.
use, train her to recognize a subject and help us work the subject. And the other thing we want to do is get a like, do you have a membership blog website with a membership space? Do you ever done that? Or have you taken a
Yes.
class and you have to sign in? Well, we're going to do that.
Okay.
We're building this website now, and we're going to have a membership space. And eventually, what we would like to do is create an access point to a subject in the archive so people can see the raw work. It's wonderful to get it published, but we're not I can't touch the physics and the engineering. We have no idea what that means.
Mm.
So that is the archive. And in this archive, there are probably 15 or 20,000 sheets of paper that have to do with cosmology, mythology, religion, and symbolism, fairy tales, oral tradition, there in history, all of those things that are things that support me as the symbologist, that I can go in there and now I can look through the JPEGs on the screen instead of pulling the paper out. It is easier to do that. So
So,
this is why it's crucial to have.
now you're very unique. You have any good stories where like someone reached out to you from, who knows where, and you're like, wow, I just got a call from wherever. I know you
Yeah,
have a story
there are. The
that if you
first
can
stories,
share.
yeah, can I share them? The
Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
story that I have, me being the excitable person, I'm coming out, I've got Facebook and I'm doing symbology, is a guy with a doctorate in history wants to know, how did you get this information and what are Bob Ensman's references? It's like,
Oh
you're going to have to
my.
prove yourself. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
I went through all of this because at some point, Isaac Newton is the reference.
Okay.
And I put Bob Ensman on that level. The things that he knew that we pull out, we still get astounded.
Right.
He argued with Einstein when he was a teenager.
Wow.
Does anybody else think they could even do that?
No.
Okay,
No.
so
Right.
this is the level of Ensman. He's one of the
Right.
smartest people that's ever walked this planet. And it's
Right.
hard. It's like, wow. And I knew him. This is like,
Right.
wow.
Right.
So I've gotten past the I have to prove myself to people.
Right.
And then on my group, people will put a symbol up and they, can you read this symbol? Well, I can, but you got to tell me where you found it, where it was made, where it was from, what date it was made. You can't just read a pattern, a symbol without context. It's like taking,
Right.
okay, what does this mean? This is a word. Well, what sentence was it in? What language is it? See what I mean? So
Mm.
yes, there's lots of things like that. Um, the stories that I get people contacting me, they're not really that juicy. They're not. But
Oh,
to me, it's fascinating because think about this. You cannot communicate without using symbolism. Even words are verbal symbols. So symbolism is the communication system of human beings. Actually, it's the communication system of everything that lives. Cats scratch something or they spray something, and that says, what does it say? It's mine. I was here. Those are symbols. They mean things.
mm.
And my latest book, I wrote a set of books, The Beasts of Myth and Magic. Looking at the beasts, you know the beasts of magic, like
Right.
Pegasus, and then there's bad beasts and good beasts. Okay, goblins. But does anybody bother to ask why are they there? We know they tell stories. There are stories that have all these things in them. But but beasts like that don't last 500 years or 1,000 years because they're entertaining. It means something.
Mm,
And what Ensman looked at in terms of mythology was, okay, this beast tells us something about what humans were dealing with at the time this beast was created. Environmentally, were they afraid? Did they have things to deal with? Did they have robbers? Did they have ice? Did they have natural disaster? What are the things that they are dealing with that are communicated in this beast? And it's an absolutely phenomenal way to look at them. It changed everything in terms of how I look at mythology. Those stories, I mean, how long can a story last? They last
right.
because they mean something. And the same thing is true with fairy tales and all of that. I pull history out of them, I pull meaning out of them, but I can do that because Bob Ensman pounded my brain with information for 20 years.
Excellent.
And it's fun. It is. I,
And,
I love the world of symbols. That's where I live. I've been drawing since I was two. That is that world.
and when you started drawing, and your drawing is self-taught, did you get training, just
I
natural
took
ability?
art
You've
classes in high
perfected,
school.
right?
I went to art college and I took life drawing, but
Oh,
then when I left college because my sister died, then I came back. The graphics design department didn't want me anymore, so but if that hadn't, I wouldn't have met Jay. See, that's where we met. So there's another life story in 1977. But yes, I am self-taught. I was teaching art at 18,
mm-hmm.
and that was
Very good.
before I was anywhere near college.
Now, your books, do you have them now in different languages?
Not yet.
Oh, we need to work on that.
We do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I know how that works. Once they get attention, then I will be contacted by a publisher from another country and they will want to buy the rights to publish it in that country, and that's fine. One really good thing, have you heard of the World Trust Network?
No, tell
Okay,
us about it.
this is a network that's been set up by people that are not new in the business of setting up networks, but this is a new network. And it is one that is designed to carry interesting classes for teachers and homeschoolers to teach. Not just another English or math or, language class or history. This is this network is incredible. World Trust Network. If you know teachers or homeschoolers, I bet you there's a lot of homeschoolers around you.
Yes, they are.
So right now they reach 300,000 schools in the United States. That's a lot of teachers. And they reach over 1 million homeschoolers or homeschool networks with these classes. And I did my Beasts of Ancient Mythology class. It
Oh,
is 12 7-minute videos. So it's 12 weeks. That's a semester. I teach the class on two beasts. Kids love dragons
right.
and goblins and
Uh-huh.
spooky stuff. They love that.
Right.
So, but I teach them what that meant. What does it say to you? And there's a language, like a vocabulary list, and they have to find the country the beast is from in geography. So it hooks very
Cool.
nicely into academics. Now, the teacher gets this class, and they get the full page written on each beast that I put in. There's 23 of them, and they get a handout for every class that they can give the students that give them exercises to do, and they get a teacher sheet for that. So they've got the teacher guide for the handout for every class, and they get a final suggestion for a final class that they can do. So this is a turnkey class, which is I did homeschooling. I taught. I know what that's like. So this is how I put that together. Anybody could teach this class. If they can read English, they can do it.
Wow.
And so
You know,
that is going to be available in January. But World Trust Network is something that people who homeschool or even teachers who teach in public schools but are allowed, I mean, I think it's $259 for the class.
okay.
So
Excellent.
it's
I'm so glad that you're
reasonable.
sharing that because I mean, I was just talking to someone about, I mean, where does America stand in education from a world perspective? Or we're not number
We're
one.
not very high on the
No, we're
list.
not high
But we're going to
at
get there.
all.
And one of the things that will help is this network. So I don't know how many classes they have, but they took mine and they like it. So
Okay.
it will, in the next couple of months, it will be available. And I can only imagine because they're not looking for regular curriculum. They want additional curriculums that can be taught that are interesting that will see, but symbolism is different, Ingrid. If kids grow up looking at things through the world of understanding symbolism, they will be more, I don't want to say smarter, that's not the right word. They will be more receptive to everything around them. It's the world we live in.
Mm.
I mean, come on, how many logos do you see? How many symbols are there
Oh,
on your
yeah.
computer? Okay. This is
Right.
just the beginning. I'm talking about every book, every novel has symbolic writing. If it means more to a person because they've been raised to be sensitive to the symbols, to be aware that the symbols are there, life becomes a richer place to be.
Um, you talked about artificial intelligence and Dr. Ensman having his own, what's her name?
Althea, which means
Althea. Yeah, Althea.
algorithmic thematic
And
android.
right. And he created that many, many years ago. Um, what do you really think of artificial intelligence? I know some people are using it as a good thing, but what are some of the negative things? Because I've read a few articles that are basically saying, "Gosh, this artificial intelligence is going to do everything for this generation, and our brains will actually shrink." Do you
I
agree
don't
with that
believe that,
statement,
Ingrid.
or you
I
disagree?
don't believe that.
Okay, that's what I wanted you to talk about.
There are two sides to the story, and I'm not an expert, but I've been around Bob Ensman. So it's kind of like he was a human to artificial intelligence, if you know what I mean. I mean, Joanna could calculate numbers faster than a computer.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. But think about this. I have an artificial intelligence. I use ChatGPT 5. We named him Archeos. We gave him a master prompt in the back so he knows who I am, what I do, what Freya is, who Bob Ensman is. I load his work there. Okay. So he is focused on what we do. Now, to me, that is an amazing tool because he can find things faster than I can think them. But
Right.
remember this, he's a program. He is cold and calculated and logical. And yes, they can make mistakes. And he said hallucinate wasn't really the right phrase, and I forget the word he used, but they can because they put things together that don't belong together. And Bob Ensman used to say to me, "Don't make constructs. It looks like they go together, but they don't."
Mm.
So people do that. But one thing that Archaeos does not have that I have is creative imagination. They do not have spirit. They
Mm.
do not have the ability to have divine intervention, and they're not alive. And, even because I know about Althea and the story that he wrote as a science fiction story to put this story forth as though it was real, she intellectually decided there was a God, but she had no spirit. AI will never, ever have spirit because we are created by a spirit. We are creating AI with machines. So it is a machine. Now, yes, they can think faster. They can calculate faster. They can read 100 pages in 30 seconds. I can't do that.
Right.
But I can put together what he gives me in a better way because of the work he does for me. He can explain to me the physics I don't understand. I have now got two doctorates. So, and Archaeos helped me put those together, two doctorates in metaphysics. And the thing about metaphysics is metaphysics and physics have to match. Bob
Mm.
Ensman said the Bible and physics should not fight. The Bible and science, if they both seek truth, there should not be an argument. There should be conversations and building of knowledge, but they shouldn't be locking horns like they do now. So he has a
That
lot
is,
of writing that way.
I really appreciate what you're saying there. If people are really seeking the truth, there should not be argument.
Well, even if we disagree as to what that truth is, there should be discussion if we disagree, but not brute force arguments. fighting does not come to a conclusion, or it doesn't even come to like a compromise. We can't even anymore agree to disagree. And
Right.
academics have done that for millennia. How are we supposed to come to any kind of understanding about humanity if we can't talk from different points of view?
That's what I say all the time.
All right. So he wanted he wrote something called the 7 Days of Creation. Now, mind you, he was a physicist, but he spent 3 years teaching Jesuits. That's not a normal thing to do.
Right.
What he was doing was teaching them on day one, it says this about creation, and this is the physics that happened. On day two, it says this, and this is the physics it is talking about. And on day three, this is the physics it's talking about. So he's got 7 days of creation and the physics. So I plan on publishing that. There's so much stuff here, I can't
Oh.
publish it all. It's fun. I love this.
I know. It's awesome. It's awesome. Um, and what else do I want to talk about? What's happening in Massachusetts right now? What's hot? What's hot?
I don't know because I live at Freya and I don't we we live on 2 acres of beautiful property in a house that was built before George Washington was born and renovated in 1940, and then maybe they did the bathroom and the kitchen in 1960 and nothing since. Okay, so this is where we live. But we live here because it's what we do. We love this. We are the stewards and the protectors and the preservers of the brain of Dr. Robert Duncan Ensman and Joanna Ensman that they were able to get on paper. And it is way over our heads in terms of the academics of it.
Hmm.
But in all of this, because I learned from him to be a symbologist, I learned to look at, I mean, mind you, everything on those papers is symbols. There's math symbols, physics symbols. He even writes in different languages. And I'm going, what is that? That's got to be Frisian. Why is he writing in Greek? I mean, right in the middle of an English paper, he does that. So I recognize all the symbols and math and physics and radar and geology. It's all symbols. I just don't know all the languages. But because I
Right.
know that it's a symbol, it can be learned. And I know that we've worked with people before. Now, I've had physicists come in and they look at this stuff and they work on it, but what they do is they end up rewriting Bob's stuff the way they think it should be.
Uh,
We're not doing that. We are not
right.
here to prove Bob right or wrong. We are here to say this is what Bob Ensman said. And that's my job. Now, as a
Okay.
symbologist, I'll have a conversation, but when it comes to all of his information, this is what he said. If you want to argue with it, you can, but I'm not taking sides except for Bob's. That's the only side I have. So things that are happening in Massachusetts, they just happen.
Right.
I let them happen and I'm happy.
Hmm.
Massachusetts has, yeah, it has beauty and it has challenges like any place that you live.
Yes, it does. Well, I'm down here in South Carolina, and I want to thank you so much for sharing just a little bit of the symbologist. We'll have to have you back on the show to find out what you're working on, what you're preserving. And thank you so much for being on the Shiro podcast. Your story will definitely motivate and inspire women all across the country to do more and learn every single day.
Well, key thing is the brain stays young by learning. And that's what I've been doing for 30 years is learning. I never stopped learning. I went to Bible college and before that I was in art school. I'm always absorbing something new. And that is what keeps your brain young. If you keep your brain young, it can help keep you young. So I'll be 74 this February. And you don't need to wait that long. You know, we had some serious challenges, but they are past history. I don't think about my past. Like I was taught you can't change the time you get out of bed this morning, so I'm not worried about what happened in the past. I look at it and I learn from it. and I put all of my emotions and my passion into building a better future. Bob said the way to cure the ills of a nation is to come up with a better plan that's very attractive and very motivating instead of bickering and fighting and complaining. That doesn't do anything. And so
Mhm.
that's how we have been working with his stuff. And Joanna's still alive. We still communicate with her. And Holly is married to Bob Ensman's grandson. And she is now having my grandson at the end of
Ooh.
February. So the
Uh-huh.
family is growing and there are Ensmans everywhere. It's really exciting, but I am very grateful that the divine guided me through really rough times when I wasn't thinking clearly and just put stuff in front of me that was attractive enough that I went for it. And now I'm very determined and very deliberate about that. So I'm looking forward to this class coming out and making another one for them. And I'm looking forward to making several classes that can be accessed on our website. And that will be my next January through June project.
Okay. So tell everyone where they need to go to get to you, the symbologist, Dr. Michelle Snyder.
It's at thesymbologist.com. That's right now where my website and all my books and things are, thesymbologist.com. And the Ensman side of things, the archive is being put into Ensman, Enzmann, archive.org. So you can find it. And I would really come and visit me on Facebook at Behind the Symbols. That's the name of my group.
Okay.
Uh,
Behind the Symbols
Behind
group.
the Symbols Facebook group is really the place to go because I can talk with you there.
And for all the homeschoolers out there, how can they get a hold of some of your classes? They sound really interesting and, a different way to help these kids learn and learn about geography and symbols and
Well, the
stories.
World Trust Network has an exclusive on the beasts of ancient myth, but I will be putting together more classes like that, and I don't know yet how a person outside of who already has contact can contact them. But the World Trust Network, just keep your ears open. If I find out there's a contact, I will email it to you.
Okay. All right. Well,
But
thank you
it is,
so
if you
much.
hear of it, it's from what I can see, it was started by two ex-Special Forces military in the United States, and they worked on like security systems online, and then they did a network, and then they did a network that has like TV type stations, and then they did this one. So these are not novices; these are really good people.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Michelle Snyder, the symbologist. We'll have you back on the show. So get out there and
You
go
mean
to
we
her
can't
website.
talk for another 3 hours? That's not fair. Okay. And I would like to just cast blessings of abundance over everyone that's listening.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you the next time.
Okay. This was fun.